thing I at least have when like looking at a game and like judging it as like from a critical standpoint. Like, I'll give an example of like what I mean to better explain what I mean by this. Pokemon Sword and Shield, and I guess yes, it's different to Lego Star Wars. Hear me out here. So with Pokemon Sword and Shield, those games in terms of story content is not a lot. The story is kind of everywhere, and like they do all the ideas in the last like the last half hour of the main story, and then obviously the post game stuff was very obvious. Like they had to jumble together a post game story to make way for the content they couldn't do in time for the deadline of finishing the main story, and all that fancy stuff. But like either way, I still enjoy playing it, right? That is my subjective enjoyment. People may think the game is bad, right? Because, oh, bring back national decks. I was fine with the removal of the national decks, just because it's not like the inaccessibility of like the majority of Pokemon is something new to the series. Like, for example, you couldn't get the... Could you get Mewtwo in Gold, Silver, Crystal? I don't remember. But like, you couldn't get the Kanto starters, if I recall correctly. Like, I mean, starters are, at least in old days, starters were kind of a big problem. Because you either had to, especially in, like, Gen 1, when, the Pokemon breeding wasn't a thing. Because when Pokemon breeding wasn't a thing, you had to trade away your starter, like, immediately in order to complete the Pokedex to someone else and your mate. Your mate, like, what you could do, at least in terms of starter Pokemon, is you and your mate start a game. So you start a game up. Select different starters. So say you select Bulbasaur or something, I don't know. Select Bulbasaur, Charmander. Point is, you would have to trade and do a lot of fancy shit or long-winded and annoying routine in order to complete the Pokedex in the original Gen 1 games. And then you had the Gen 2 games where it was a little easier because you had Pokemon breeding and you could just breed the starters, then trade those and trade the newly hatched Pokemon over to the next game. Oh, sorry, over to your friend's game. It was a little easier. Then don't forget, like, a lot of Pokemon back in the day was still locked behind a bunch of walls and shit. For example, like, obviously, like, a lot of the events, early events for, like, Mew, Celebi, and so on, were Japan exclusive. And you couldn't get access to them without glitches or, you know, hacking your game. And then, obviously, I mean, there were a bunch of scrapped events in Gen 4. It's like a lot of Pokemon were locked behind that. The Arceus event was scrapped, and you had to hack your game. Both Arceus events were Heart Gold, Soul Silver, Diamond, Pearl, Platinum. Those events were blocked, so you never got so you would never get access to Arceus. Without using a cheating device, which was a real shame because Arceus is actually quite a nice Pokemon with both based up 720 or challenge league as many times as you want. And then there was Gen 3, and Gen 3 and completing the national decks in Gen 3 was a fucking mess. Because the thing with Gen 3 was like, that was the game that national decks kind of first ever happened. Because like Johto and because Johto was an extension of Kanto essentially. So you just kind of got an upgraded Pokedex that filled in more data. But with Hoenn, and Gen 3, because it was like, oh, right, we kind of have to continue this. We didn't think we were going to get past Gen 2. Because they wanted to continue it. And they hid, like, the majority of Johto Pokemon behind, like, a huge fucking paywall. And that huge fucking paywall are the Shadow Pokemon games. Because, like, a lot of those... Because this thing, Entei, Raikou, Suicune can only get by transferring them from Pokemon Coliseum. Lugia did technically exist in a Gen 3 event, though I can't remember off the top of my head if that event was ever distributed at all. So that was a huge problem, that, you know, like, majority of the Johto decks was just locked behind by the paywall of 2 Shadow Pokemon games. And if you're trying to complete the national decks in Gen 3 these days, like, you got an original GBA and everything, like, there's a huge problem in the form of, bro, what was the huge fucking problem? Even I've forgotten now. With the huge problem of... What the fuck is the problem? Yeah, so Johto Pokemon locked behind the paywall of Coliseum. Oh yeah, it's like a bunch of legendaries were locked behind XD Gale of Darkness and Coliseum, and like yeah. So completing the national decks, if you've got an original GBA, even the Shadow Pokemon games, you still can't fucking complete it. And I'll tell you why. Because if you're trying to go the whole legit way, then you can't, because, I mean, yeah, the events are not distributed anymore. But there was something called the Eon ticket, which I spoke about in the last stream, I think. Yeah, the Eon ticket, which in Auras, so Omega Ruby, Alpha Sapphire, you could get to Eon. So so I'll go from the remake to the originals. In the remake, so Omega Ruby, Alpha Sapphire, the Eon ticket was given away as an early purchase bonus in the mystery gift. And it had a nice little feature that if you had it in your thing, if you had it in your bag on that save file, and you used the 3DS feature of Street Pass with somebody else, you could get you brain fucking work with me here. Yeah, so if you Street Pass with somebody who didn't have the ticket, but you did, they would also get the ticket. And that's how I got mine. Because I'd got the game after after the early purchase bonus release was kind of over. So I had to wait. So I got mine luckily through Street Pass. If you had a GBA, so going back to Emerald, Ruby, and Sapphire, or Ruby, Sapphire, Emerald, whichever one you want to fucking talk about, you would get a Wandering Legendary in the form of Latias or Latios, depending on which game you're playing. In Ruby, in Emerald, it was Latias as your Wandering Legendary, and in Sapphire, you got Latios as your Wandering Legendary. And as your Wandering Legendary, and here's the thing, you could get the other one. However, it was locked behind something called an e-reader and the Eon ticket. And the only way you could get the Eon ticket is through the e-reader, and then the card specific for that e-reader was only given out at a fucking event. And, like, they don't classify, and they were not later classified as mythicals, despite, because you can get them, because you can technically legitimately get them in-game. Because you can get those things legitimately in-game. In one form or another. on, let me just take all this out. So you get back to the mining. You're gonna have to... Oh! I didn't even realize there were people in chat. Holy shit. I didn't... Oh my god, I didn't even fucking realize there were people in chat. I was so caught up in my ranting. Oh, I'm fucking brain dead.